We are driving a 2019 Ford GT. Long pause. It's owned by my friend Karl Brauer. Coming up in a little bit, Karl's going to tell you the one modification you would be stupid not to get on your Ford GT. But first, information explosion. Wink, wink. In a safe environment, what is the fastest you've driven your Ford GT?
About 142 or something.
Wow, okay.
That was on a close course.
Naturally. Digging into it. Style! Karl, we're going to approach the style segment a little bit differently than I normally would because you know so much about the Ford GT. I'm just going to say a word and then you tell me a little bit about it. Buttress.
What's cool about it is it's not just kind of dramatic looking, but it actually serves as a airway. You pick up air in the intercoolers that are on either side of the car, and then it goes through the flying buttress into the engine compartment, which cooling a mid-engine car is always one of the most challenging things that you do. It's very tough to get air to it.
So it's super cool looking and it's also functional. I'm going to give you a hint. That will be a theme throughout this video. Let's move on to item 2. Carbon fiber.
Yeah, they decided to make the car out of carbon fiber for functional purposes. It's strong yet light. Most of the car is carbon fiber. You actually get to see a very cool look of carbon fiber and steel coming together when you open the doors and you look at the hinges. There's these meaty hinges.
Oh, those hinges are, I don't want to say my favorite part, but they're really cool.
There's so much industrial stuff going on when you open the car door and you look where the hinges are. But what's neat is that they also made it a styling element. It's got the stripes that normally would have been a painted color, but on the carbon series, which is what this version is of the Ford GT, they're exposed carbon stripes.
Now, Karl, I don't want to burn down too much of my goodwill, but there's a thing I do in most of the vehicles. Needless full throttle acceleration. I have open road ahead of me. Karl, are you okay with me full throttling?
My head is braced.
Needless full throttle exit, and that's all we got. There we are at the speed limit. Well, that was fast.
Yeah.
Karl, paint.
Every time I went through all the color options, I came back to liquid blue, blue being one of my favorite color tones for any car.
As indicated by the fact that you previously owned a 2005 GT, also in blue.
Also in blue. Every time I'd see one in red, I'm like, geez, that's beautiful. I can't paint my car a Ferrari color. I've got to paint it a Ford color.
We kind of found the perfect balance though, because you've got your blue car, but you also have some red accents.
That color is called Race Red. It's another Ford color. It's very common on Mustangs. You can get it on a Ford F-150. And the fact that it's got the mirror caps, the brake calipers, and then that center narrow stripe between the carbon fiber stripes as that contrasting race red, to me adds a lot of personality to the car that even other liquid blue ones don't have.
Aerodynamics.
It's a functional design that looks very appealing and attractive.
Also, there's an active component too. When you look at that wing, the wing does some crazy stuff, right?
At various speeds, it'll deploy automatically, and then if you're going like in the VMAX mode, it'll of course retract. So you don't want as much resistance, so it'll come down. It's very dramatic when it moves, and it's very quick.
If you want your GT to look badass, because normally it just looks so sedate, just put it in that VMAX mode and it just hunkers down. Karl, wheels.
Wheels.
By the way, how often have you accidentally hit the windshield wipers with your thumb?
Never. I would never do that. The wheels on this car are carbon fiber, and that makes them very light and very expensive, and makes me all very nervous whenever I'm parking this car. It's like, where's the curb? Where's the curb? You know, because even the smallest hit would be very expensive. But I just think it's fabulous that this car comes with carbon fiber wheels.
Hey, be sure to follow us on Instagram. Future Evie has put my graphic down here, and follow Karl if you want to see more Ford GT stuff. Karl is your man. Interior. Talk about the interior just a little bit.
It's a very tight interior because it's part of the whole car's exterior design and the teardrop shape around the passenger cell. So we get to sit really close to each other. It's good things that we're so comfortable with each other, Micah, because we are right next to each other.
This is like flying in the R-22 training helicopter where I'm just like right up against you. Hope this isn't awkward.
Beyond that, you've got swaths of carbon fiber everywhere, from the steering wheel to the door panels. I love the door seals. When you open the door, you got these big wide door seals, and there's great, beautiful exposed carbon fiber. And then there's other things like the fact that this dash that we're seeing here is a structural component of the passenger cell. And as a result, for instance, we only have air conditioning coming out of the door-mounted vents, because there are no vents in the dash, because it's really not a hollow dash where you could have tubes running through it. It's a structural part of the car.
Form following function. It's a theme. What about the steering wheel? So there's no stalks, you have paddle shifters, but there's a lot of action happening.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't do that on cue. The wipers went off because I hit it with my thumb. Talk me through this. What am I doing wrong here, Karl?
Yeah, I mean, you've got all these controls for wipers, for brights, for the driving mode, for turn signals.
By the way, it is sort of a squared off motif. Who wore it better, the Ford GT or the Chevy
Corvette that I drove recently?
Yeah.
You know, I love it in both cars. I don't know. That's an excellent
That's a very
question.
diplomatic way to say it. The answer is GT.
Yeah. This also lights up here for your red line. Flip the switch.
There it was.
Okay, did it light up for you?
Green, as far as I dared go, which is not that high.
I couldn't see it from this angle.
Yeah.
I think it's very focused for the driver. Your peripheral vision's picking that up, and you can start shifting without ever looking off the road.
One of the weird things about the GT is that the seats are affixed to the body. You have a little bit of a seat back angle adjustment, but for the driver, that means the pedals have to move. Yeah, so walk us through that.
Ford didn't want to have your perspective shifting. They had a place where they wanted the human head to be in relation to the A-pillars and looking out the thing. So they fixed where your head's going to basically be if you sit in a Ford GT. What moves instead is the steering wheel and the pedals. We had Lynn in here a little while ago, and it was a little...
My compadre Lynn Woodward over at KBB's channel. If you don't follow KBB's channel, I will come and find you.
Yep, and she's great. She had sat in it for the first time about 10 minutes before we started doing this, and we had to move the steering wheel back, and it was pretty good for her. The pedals didn't quite come back far enough and all, so
yeah. But it fits me
close.
Fine. So let's keep our eyes on the prize.
That's right. You're probably like perfectly sized for this thing. I'm just a tad tight on my head, but I think you're perfect for it.
Once again, a completely average 5'10" frame pays off. Yeah, headroom is fine for me.
See, you could wear a helmet. If I can fit in it, but if I have a helmet on, I'm touching.
You have to kind of do one of these things.
Yeah.
A couple of quick notes. Cargo space is abysmal. There's a little spot behind the engine, but there's not a lot to work with there. So if you are going to take stuff, bring somebody who doesn't mind having a backpack on their lap.
Well, what I tell people with this car is FedEx is your friend.
Yes, indeed. Armrest test. Nope. There's none over here, and the one over here is too low for me to use while my hand's on the steering wheel.
This is your armrest right here. Your shoulder joints. That's going to support your arm.
Bring your Karl with you wherever you go, and then you have an armrest available. That's going to be two sad elbows down, but luckily there's enough other nice stuff that I can't be too mad. I can't stay mad at you, Ford GT. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. At 100,000 subs, I'm going to review a windowless white van in motion. Tell me about that V6.
Yeah, so 3.5 liter V6 that makes, all the traditional performance guys go, "Ooh, it's got a V6." But it also does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, maybe 2.9, depending on your surface. It's already won the 24-hour of Le Mans. It tops out at 216 miles per hour. So it's very hard for me to get too wound up over how many cylinders it's got when I'm more interested in those numbers I just gave you. Not to mention the exhaust note, which I think sounds pretty cool in this thing. So,
which I would definitely exploit were we not coming up to the side of the school bus.
We literally start talking exhaust note as we approach a stopped school bus. It doesn't go well together.
What happens if I pull both of these paddles? Will it go in neutral?
No, it doesn't do that. This is the only way to get it neutral is your rotating dial.
That V6 is teamed with a 7-speed dual clutch. How do you find the dual clutch?
I find it really good. Dual clutches are ultimately superior, but you don't get the man-machine engagement, which I do somewhat miss, and at low speeds in various versions of them, you'll get weird kind of engagements as they go from neutral to engaging the wheels.
For pure speed, it's hard to beat a dual clutch, very, very quick shifts, and when you pull the paddle shifter, there's no lag in those reactions. I mean, that was down to second very, very quickly.
You have to get in a weird situation like backing at a low speed up a slight hill on a driveway, and then you kind of can tell, oh yeah, this isn't a torque converter, this is a dual clutch.
Tell me about the brakes.
Carbon ceramic. ceramic brakes.
Yeah.
Now, you know,
is that optional or is that standard?
Standard. You cannot get a Ford GT without carbon ceramic brakes. They feel totally normal, except when I really need them, at which point they feel much better than normal. They feel like supercar brakes, like they are. So I'm a big fan of carbon ceramic, and they also are lighter. They last forever, which is good because when they do finally need service, you might know this, Micah, they're really expensive. It's just the pads can be kind of expensive, and if the rotors ever need to be replaced, you're talking like $10,000+ $10,000 to $20,000 for a brake job.
Well, do you have another Ford GT you can tell to help pay for those brakes?
So I was going to say, so if you could avoid just using the brakes at all during this drive, I don't want to wear them out.
I'm going to be very respectful during this drive. You may have noticed I'm driving awfully daintily, and that will be something I continue for the duration because I don't want to break my boss's GT. One major observation while driving, visibility over the right side is abysmal, and I don't believe I have blind spot warning over there. So my pro tip, this is something I use in all supercars that I can't see over the right side, is to see the space ahead of you and then blast at great speed into it. So I am not exploiting the Ford GT anywhere near its potential. You certainly have that. In fact, you know what? Maybe the smart thing to do is I'm going to go take this gentle right turn. I'm feeling some emotion, but I don't want to get crazy with it. Carl, how about you drive this thing and show me what it's all about? Oh, that's nice. No more responsibility, Carl. Tell me, what's it like to drive a Ford GT like somebody who owns one?
It's fun.
Well, this is a moment here. We've got a stop sign, and I suppose you could leave quickly if you felt like it. But you could if you wanted to.
There's a little LC down there in the corner.
I see that, okay.
And that means that it's technically in launch control mode, so I think...
All right. Feels like launch control. Wow.
So you tell me, how does it launch control?
Quite well. I mean, I don't think it could be any quicker without all-wheel drive, right? I mean, this is like we're maxing out the format of the car.
Right.
It could not be faster, I don't think.
So just so you know, that's the first time I've ever done launch control in this car.
It does launch control very well. My brain doesn't feel quite right, Carl. What about steering? When you're driving this thing and you're driving it quicker than, let's say, a subordinate employee might, what do you feel through the steering wheel?
Everything, and that's why I love the car. By the way, this car uses hydraulics for all the suspension activity. So once there was a hydraulic system in the car, they were like, why not just keep it for the steering system? So this is hydraulic assisted steering.
I wouldn't drive like this because that would be nutty, but there's so much capability too.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about the 05 GT was that when you pushed it past its natural limit, you could play. This car's got a much higher threshold than the 05, 06 Ford GT, and normally the higher the threshold gets, again, the more razor sharp it is once you go past.
Yeah.
This car, go past its natural threshold, you can play. And that's my favorite thing about the cars. Even when you go as hard as this car goes around a corner and it starts to break away, a little counter steer, maybe a little throttle feed, and your power slide.
One observation, ride quality is firm. In all settings, it is firm. It is completely appropriate for what it is you're driving. So, yeah, I'm okay with feeling the pain. Okay, we've had our fun. I want back on the steering wheel. Hey, so that's what it's like to drive a Ford GT when it's not owned by your boss. Fun. I don't know if there's a better way to wrap up the InMotion segment than thanking you for letting me drive your Ford GT. Emotion factor. The emotion factor, from my outsider's perspective, seems very strong. What is the emotion factor of the Ford GT for you?
I went on a relatively long drive to a open house thing over in Huntington Beach last night, and I was going up the 73 toll road, and it's a nice open road, nobody's there. And it was literally, sad to say, Micah, one of the first times I had just like leaned back in the car, and I remember thinking, stop thinking about all the things going on and what car you're in, and just sit there and enjoy the car. And this is a breakthrough for me. I'm going to try to do that more often.
Do you feel a real human emotion when you look at it or you drive it? Is it doing what it should be doing?
Yeah, it is. And again, that's why, like, I'll be like, everyone just settle down. It's not that big a deal. And then I'll park it and I'll look back at it and I'll be like, wow, that car's awesome. That's a big deal.
If you're feeling emotionally moved to buy a Ford GT, I mean, I include this in every video, but check the Kelley Blue Book. Oh, it's too hot. That camera stopped. I'm going to do this one. If you're feeling emotionally moved to buy a Ford GT, check out the Kelley Blue Book listing in the description. Though I don't know if there are many Ford GTs listed, so the link may be useless to you. Gentle. Yep, I'm mindful if nothing else. While we let that camera cool down, remarks. Before diving into the remarks section, you may have subtly noticed that I did this. This is the nose lift. So one of the first remarks is that if you don't want to scrape the front end of your GT off, use the nose lift. This was the one bit of advice you gave me when driving your GT, and I have taken it to heart. You can't overuse that front end lift, can you?
I've already done it like barely twice. There's these two little nicks on either side of my lower splitter that are very hard to find, but I know where they are because they just barely touched twice for me.
Let's talk about another remark too. You mentioned sound. Listen to this. You hit these like little... What is that?
So yeah, that is the fact that between the suspension's stiffness and the body having zero give because it's an ultra stiff carbon fiber body, there's nowhere for that energy to go except turn into sound and, you know, move the wheel up very quickly and then it immediately is back down. I call it the rifle crack. You know?
Yeah.
If you're going more than about 40 or 50 and you cross a bot dot, all that happens is a loud crack through the whole car. And the first time you do it, you're like, I just broke something.
I broke Carl's GT. Oh no. Well, time to move to Mexico.
There are weird noises going on constantly when you start it, when you go over bot dots. There's, by the way, when you roll into the throttle, I'll see if I can show it to you and all. It'd be fun to see if we can capture it. It's like there's a guy making noises. There's like a guy going, woo, woo, woo.
That camera now overheated. We're down to this one. We're going to pause for a moment and let everything cool down. Carl, take a breather. We'll be right back with this. Oh, yeah. That's a masculine clap.
You can't sync that sound. I don't know what's wrong.
It can't be synced. Carl, at the beginning of the video, I teased that you were going to tell everybody the one modification they'd be stupid not to get for their Ford GT. What is that?
What you've got to get is a wrap on the car's paint. Clear Bra wrap tech has come so far in the last 5 years or so that now I consider it essential on any vehicle that's remotely like important to you or rare or unique. And I did it on my Dodge Demon first a couple of years ago. I was so thrilled with the lowered stress level I had knowing there was this thin layer of protective film on top of all my paint that it wasn't even a question when I got the Ford GT. And I wrapped the entire car, including the underside. The underside of this car is wrapped. And a lot of people are like, why would you? The underside of this car is as well finished as everything on the top side.
That is commitment. If you buy a nice car, maybe wrap your nice car. Lightning round, there are parts bin components in here that you would not know unless you knew. Quick, give me 2 or 3.
So the window switches are, I'm pretty sure, the same things you'd find certainly in an Explorer, I think maybe even a Mustang. The door button releases come from the Lincoln Continental.
A couple other interesting points. The windshield is Gorilla Glass, correct?
And so is the rear glass in the Carbon series. So the thing covering the engine in a Carbon series is a polycarbonate. That saves you about 40 pounds. It's basically a high-grade plastic.
Real quick, what are the pro tips on getting in and out using the doors?
Most people wisely, they kind of go, you know, posterior in with their legs facing straight out 90 degree, and then they swing their legs in, and that works for most people, and it's probably the safest. I've mastered the art, for better or for worse, of kind of getting in and getting myself into an increasingly seated position as I lower in and slide through the door. It's a veteran move, so be careful if you're trying that, kids. Don't try that at home.
Carl, I'm projecting a little bit here, but when I drive a car like this, there's a lot of capability, there's a lot of potential, it looks very cool, but in the back of my mind, I can't help but think, this is a $500,000 worth of vehicle, don't it up. Thank you, Sensi.
If I stop and think like that, I can get all wound up. But if I don't, the car is very manageable, it's easy to drive. I felt the same way about the 05, you know, I got good at just deciding I'm going to act like this is a normal car and I'm going to drive it wherever I want, and I put 31,000 miles on that car in 13 years and enjoyed the out of it. This is as much as many people's or more houses in America, and if I crash it, I just crashed a house. I don't think like that.
Yeah, it is also that, but you know, just don't think like that. By the way, you mentioned the 05. Kelley Blue Book did a really cool comparison with the new GT, the mid GT that you owned, and then a replica, super performance replica of the original GT40. Go check it out.
That was a lot of fun to shoot.
Have you had any issues with your GT?
Alignment was off, so that the steering wheel had to be held slightly to the left to go straight, which annoyed the out of me.
That would drive me crazy.
So that was there. I noticed it as soon as I drove it away from the body shop that wrapped the car right after I got it. Within a mile, I noticed that, and I didn't get that fixed until all these other things had gone wrong almost a year later. There was a noise from one of the fans that sounded a little vibratory, and I was worried that might get worse. And they looked at it and they said everything's fine, and it actually has gone away. then it wouldn't go into launch mode, and it didn't feel as fast as I thought it was supposed to feel, and I thought something was weird. And I took it, when they did all the other things, changed the oil and got the alignment straightened out, they also confirmed that a YT connector thing, whatever, in the turbo boost system had blown off. And that would explain why the car didn't feel as fast as I thought it should, and why
I can't stress this enough. If you have a Ford GT, connect all the hoses.
Yeah, keep all
Pro
hoses
tip.
connected. Don't let those.
Damn it, did the windshield wiper again. Carl, last question, and perhaps this is the most interesting one. Forget about money. What was involved in getting a Ford GT?
What it takes to get one is to apply for the system through the application system that Ford had set up, and hope that you're approved. And
You have to like write like an essay on, really?
kind of just giving lists of cars you owned in the past, cars you currently own, what you're going to do with this GT if you get one, writing some stuff, just kind of some personal stuff. There was a space to just basically like, okay, now just talk about why you deserve a GT.
Turn-ons, turn-offs.
Sending the blood sample was a little intense, but I figured I wanted the car.
Favorite Hall & Oates song.
They had 6,500 applicants for 500 cars. That ratio taught them that they could probably build 1,000 cars, so they upped it to 1,000 cars, and then they finally actually added 350 more. So now it's a 1,350 total run. They've probably delivered almost exactly half of that, I would say, at this point. This car was probably roughly 500 delivered, I'd say, out of the 1,350.
Hey, did we miss any remarks about the Ford GT? If we did, tell us in the comments. Synopsis! Carl, in thinking about your Ford GT, there's a lot to consider. It's exquisitely fast, it will bite you if you're not careful, and it's a great conversation starter. To me, the Ford GT is the privately owned exotic cat of cars. Did you know that in 8 states in America, you can legally own a tiger?
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
You can't wisely own a tiger, but you can legally own a tiger.
Yeah, but to me, it feels a little like that, except much more socially acceptable to own a Ford GT than to own a tiger. I don't think I need to own either of them, but I'm glad they exist.
Right.
Like, this is not a kind of car that I think I could get my head around, because it just feels like there's just too much that could go wrong. But I love that you own this car. It feels like the right car made it to the right person, and it all just came together.
I was just very fortunate on multiple levels to be able to get this vehicle. History kind of helped me out with my previous ownership, and again, financially it was dicey, but I could kind of make it happen, and so here we are.
Carl, thank you for letting me drive your super car from the future. Come get your high five. And you too, come get your high five.